The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
And welcome to The Divine Truth on Revolution Radio. And with myself this evening, and my co-host this evening is Nyssa. Hi Nyssa, are you there?
Hi, yes, I'm here.
How are you this evening?
Yeah, I'm good.
It's been a bit of a weird week, so we were expecting a guest on this evening, Sean Stone, but he's had a last-minute stuff to do. So, and Sarah's not feeling well. But we are going to have a guest on in a few minutes, hopefully. Tony Topping will be coming on. But do you want to have a little chat about anything before Tony comes on, Nyssa?
Is there a topic that you're interested in, that you'd like to talk about?
I just think it's been a bit of a weird week. Some weird energies going around, and I don't know. I know there's a weird moon coming up in a few days, a pink moon. I've got no idea what a pink moon is. But,
Yes, that's in Libra, and that's going to be about releasing any problems to do with relationships, being kind to ourselves and others, because Libra is about other people, putting other people first as opposed to ourselves, because it's opposed to, in the zodiac chart, it's opposite to Aries, which is all about the self. So Libra is about other people. So it's going to be about other people, which is interesting because this past week, the moon for the last few days has been in Virgo. And I think that's why we've had a lot of problems with relationships and people, because Virgo is very black and white when it comes to relationships. Virgo is the healer. So it either sees something as good or bad, healthy or sick, and it would chop away anything that it doesn't see as healthy. So any relationships that it doesn't see as like healthy or progressing or helping, it would like try to cut them off. So there's been a lot of turbulence, but that should start to ease off as we move into Libra. Obviously pink, I don't really understand what a pink moon, the ins and outs of it, but I know that pink as a vibration is healing, quite loving, quite open. So I think that things will get easier. They'll get a lot easier after that full moon in Libra, definitely, because it's been quite hard. We've had quite a lot of energy in Aries. So I think it's been
so is it a literal? It's not a literal pink moon, is it? It's like a metaphorical pink moon.
I don't
know. I've never seen a pink moon before. That's all.
I haven't really researched that side of things. But I did learn a really fascinating little trick in Vedic astrology a couple of weeks ago, which was basically, if you want to know your ascendant, what your ascendant was in your last life, you can look to the opposite of your ascendant in this life. So, for example, in this life, I'm ascendant Libra. So in my last life, I was the opposite, which is ascendant in Aries. So in my last life, I learned how to put myself first and be driven. And this life, it's the other way around, is service to others.
Yeah.
And that works for like all the signs, basically. So that was quite interesting.
Yeah, there's been a lot of conflict this week, really. A lot of weird stuff, weird energy around, a lot of disagreements.
And a lot of scary stuff as well to do. you just look on the news and there's a lots of scary stuff, like on the verge of, like, if you believe what you see, like on the news, or like on the verge of World War III, and that seems to be the energy that's just going through everyone, and lots of healing, because obviously the moon in Virgo is healing, and I myself had this terrible eye infection this week, and so I've basically been doing lots of healing because it's made me quite sick. But I know quite a few people who've been sick this week.
Yeah.
And if it's not physical, then it's stress or emotional. Everything seems to be coming up to the surface, because Virgo's the healer. You can't heal something unless you recognize it, that there's something wrong with it. So any issues will be brought to the surface at this time. And then as you move into the Libra, that's the healing and the balance aspect. It's like, okay, so I overdid it there, so I can like balance it out now.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of influences around as well. I've sort of like felt influences to make me do stuff that maybe I wouldn't normally do, things like that. But I've sort of like tried to look beyond that. I know it's difficult sometimes when I know it's hard to tell, like when you're being influenced, because you're the one being influenced, so it's difficult to tell when you're in that situation. But I think through experience, you sort of learn when something is not your own decision, or you're, you feel like you don't want to do something, but for some reason you want something or someone is making you do it. I don't know if you've experienced that, isn't it?
Yeah, it can bounce off of, like, even if you completely protect yourself, it will work through other people. So you'll be provoked through other people. Yeah, so yeah, I think it happens to everyone. But yeah, just staying centered is the most important thing.
Yeah, I think most people don't know that if, like energetically, someone can access people close to you through you without having any direct contact with that person. So, like, if someone wanted to like access a friend of mine, they could do it through me if I were friends with them, friends with both of them. It's like an energetic sort of contract in a way, isn't it? That you've made.
Yeah, it goes through the weakest link. So it will basically be someone who doesn't feel energy, who doesn't understand energy, will just feel like a compulsion to say or do something just to cause drama.
Yeah.
And they'll just go along with it.
I've seen a lot of that this week. just a little
and
bit.
It will bounce off people. It will literally just bounce from one person to the other person to the other person.
You've got to like learn to disengage, haven't you? Once you get into that
you
arguments
have
and disagreements and stuff,
back.
and it takes over. It's taken over my whole week, really. But...
Yeah, you just have to take a step back and just breathe, and just let it all sort of like work its way through, sort of thing.
I'm just waiting for Tony to come online. He's having some technical problems, which doesn't surprise me. This week's been a weird week, so it doesn't surprise me that we're having technical problems as well. Even when we get a guest on board, he can't get online either. So,
oh dear. So this is Tony. This is Tony Tipping, isn't it? And have you interviewed him before? I'm sure you have.
Yeah, I've interviewed him on Christine's show. I think it was just before Christmas. Christine could do a show. She called me last minute, and I managed to get Tony on, but only I think he came on for like an hour or so. I think he's only going to be able to come on for the first hour. I'm sure we can catch up on what he's been up to. I know I follow him on Facebook, and I see some of his posts sometimes. I know he's probably having some difficulties as well at the moment. I think either he's not well or he's tired a lot of the time and stuff like that. I guess he's another one of these like TIs who gets targeted a lot because of the stuff. Well,
he's an experiencer, isn't he? Isn't he an experiencer and an abductee? Yeah.
Yeah. He gets abducted and he has that experiences. Yeah, with ETs. He sees UFOs like above his house, stuff like that. He's photographed UFOs like above his house. I know he's talked a lot about abduction experiences and things like that. There's a lot of things that he can't talk about, but and I think he gets harassed as well by helicopters over his house and monitoring him and, being, I guess you would call like Men in Black type thing, watching him, following him, that type of thing as well.
Yeah, it seems so unfair because experiences, they seem to become abducted twice, like first by the aliens and then second by the government. It just seems so unfair. And then, of course, they're targeted and their energy is tagged. And it could be because their genetics is linked to the aliens that are in contact with them. Or it could be their soul. It could just be their soul frequency and not their genetics. Or it could be, it could be both,
Yeah, we were talking about this last week with Mary, the difference between a real alien abduction and a MyLab. But you could be, like, actually being taken by real aliens, and then the military will take an interest in you then, because obviously they're monitoring what these alien races are doing, and if they're taking certain people, the military will then get involved because they'll want to know why are they taking these people, and then they'll abduct them as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's so unfair. They get abducted twice. Yeah, it's so unfair. And you don't know half the implants if half the implants are human or if they're alien,
Yeah, that's true. Maybe we can ask Tony about that when he comes on. I'm sure he's probably got implants, but probably doesn't know whether they're ours or theirs or whatever. But yeah.
Well, you might find that ours are back engineered of theirs, so it would probably be next to impossible to tell.
That's true. Yeah. He may know, like, if the implants were given to him during a military abduction or during a genuine, sort of alien abduction.
Yeah.
Oh, I've just seen him come online. Let me just see if I can add him to the show.
Okay.
Hi, Tony.
Hello, good evening, Taj. Can you hear me all right, mate? Hello, who's that? Hello. Who's that?
Hi, it's Nyssa.
Hello, darling. How are you? Are you all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm so glad you can make it. Thank you.
Oh, you're all right, though. It was a last-minute thing, as you well know. There was just some issue with my Skype, but I'm normally quite well known for being last-minute guest with things, whether it be conferences or radio programs. I pride myself on trying to do my best for people, so I hope I've been of assistance to you. I'm a very tired man, so this subject tires you with the 1,001 things that I have to deal with. I assume we're on air.
Yeah, we're live on air now. Yeah.
How many listeners do you have, Taj? Then is it a large kind of audience? Is it quite? I'm not sure about your radio show or how it's been progressing, really, and I've no idea as I've just parachuted in. So I've kind of no idea what you might want to talk about, if anything.
Well, what's happening with you at the moment? I mean, is there anything that you want to talk about, like that's happening with you at the moment?
Yeah, can do, matey. At the moment, there is stuff going on with me, which by bizarre coincidence, it's difficult to articulate. B, it's frightening. C, you've got to be responsible with it. And it's quite bizarre that I come on a radio show to talk about what I don't really want to talk about, because there are a lot of factors and issues going on out there. And to all intents and purposes, Taj, if you look on my Facebook page, all you will see is perhaps me putting up some things to do with UFOs, me going down the pub. You won't see anything of me at the conferences or my naming lights, and yet I am at the sharp end of it all. I don't say a lot because what I'm doing is I'm kind of sorting the signal from the noise as to what is going on. And at the moment, I think the topic of conversation has to be the current world situation, human affairs, and extraterrestrial intelligence is, I think, probably the way we're going to go this evening with it. And I think that's probably that's where we're going to go with it, Taj, tonight, matey. Having had some strange carries on, which linked to experiences from years ago that didn't appear to link with my experiences presently back in I hope I'm not waffling, Taj. Do come in if you have any questions, leap in, because I'm feeling a bit jaded this evening. It's quite life is quite demanding for me, and this subject can tire you. So you've got to know when you've just got to know when to stop and when to quit while you're ahead, basically, because it can get very demanding. I'll tell you what is interesting at the moment, Taj, as we're among friends, is I was just commenting on this today. Did you read my Facebook postings about people altering timelines and people doing this and doing that? Did you see that? Are you there, Taj?
Hello, Tony. I'm not
Hello.
sure what's just. I don't know what's just happened to Taj.
Taj's gone. Has he gone? Have they got
No,
it?
no, he hasn't gone. He hasn't gone. I'm sure he'll be back in 1 second.
Gosh. So it's just you I'm speaking to, is it?
Well, he should be there. He should be there. We're just having some.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Taj.
Yeah, I can.
Just a minute. Something wrong with my microphone. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now,
Yeah,
mate. Yes.
yeah.
All right. Okay. Yeah, I was saying, we were talking about, me and Nissa were talking before the show, something similar about timelines and how they can be changed and altered. So what did you want to talk about that?
Well, the thing with that is, these are sweeping remarks. These are trendy remarks. These are remarks that we talk about that's so trendy and intellectual. But there's another level to this. The activities that go on at the moment are not going on because they're pretty. The UFOs don't come over my house because it's pretty for something for them to do. There's a purpose to everything that they do. And what I find is that people say, oh, we're going to alter this timeline, we're going to alter that timeline, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And frankly, Taj, it's complete bollocks. It's a complete exercise in intellectual masturbation, as far as I'm concerned, if I could be so sweeping, because I'm trying to get across the gravity of the situation when somebody says a remark like that. They're in uncharted waters. They don't know what they're doing. It sounds all good, but they just really, really don't know what they're doing, because I found that people who come to me with troubling psychic problems, they'll say to me something like, Tony, this, that, the other. A lot of emails I get from people who are troubled psychically, and I will say to them, have you been altering reality? Have you been manipulating this and manipulating that? Because you're probably capable of that. And they will say 9 times out of 10, yes, I have. And I will say that's probably the trouble, because we don't know what we're doing with that. We don't quite know the results it will lead to. If you take it from myself, for example, if you influence one event in time, I can guarantee you that it will manifest elsewhere, somewhere else differently. You save a bloke from falling off his bicycle, another man gets run over by a bus. It's kind of like the quantum nature of influence that goes on. And it's very interesting to note that influence is kind of like the things that the remote viewing programs of the United States and all that kind of thing didn't really talk about all that much. I think they had an operation called Project Scannet, Project Stargate, the remote viewing programs, the psychic espionage programs. There's one in particular, Project Dragoon Slayer Project. Oh my word, I can't remember its time. It was a special project that not a lot of people talked about, and it was to do with 8 ability. As one of the remote viewers commented, a guy called Lynn Buchanan, who was a remote viewer, and he had 8 ability. His orders were 8 ability means that they needed 8 martinis to get over the result of what they were doing. So he's got Lynn Buchanan, who was a top remote viewer with the US Army at the time. He had orders to by the power of mind influence, to make the president of Iran, or was it Iraq, one of those countries, unwell, and get him out of power. So he attempted that, but it recoiled on him, and he made himself ill. So you can see it's just literally uncharted waters when you don't know what you're doing with situations and human affairs. Syria being one of the greatest concerns.
Tony, can I ask you something?
Mm-hmm.
Are you aware, or do you know, are there black projects that delve into things like
yes, there are
timelines
yes,
and stuff like that?
It doesn't quite work in the way you would think. So actually, it's kind of like, how can I put it? How can I put this in words? it's just to articulate what's gone on with me. Considering I don't say a lot, I have a lot to say, and I can't articulate it into words. But basically, there are black projects out there that delve into the nature of time, influence, and the future, and even time travel. But what is interesting is the commentaries made by these people who are wanting UFO disclosure and are wanting the government to come clean on the issue of disclosure. No government will come clean on the issue of disclosure. Currently, at the moment, I think that the governments of Germany German government takes a very keen interest in the UFO situation, as does the government of Japan, as does the government of France, the UK, especially, and America, despite their official denial. And this led to, behind the scenes, in a time yet to come, of an understanding that they wanted access to scientific knowledge. But how can they have access to scientific knowledge when they're lobbing nuclear missiles at each other? What kind of an example is that? For example, probably the biggest kind of diplomatic mission Boris Johnson, our foreign secretary, might do is end up communicating with an extraterrestrial advanced race, which is currently, I do believe, over the skies of Britain at the moment.
Tony? Is it fair to say like the elites or whoever will play out timelines to, like, if they did like a disclosure, they would play it out on a timeline and come up with the best sort of scenario kind of thing. So they may be playing out certain events on the planet right now to see, you know, if we did disclosure now, what would happen, and they would see the timeline play out. And
I'm a bit tired, Taj. I might not be understanding your question.
What I'm trying to say is, do the elite use these black projects to play out certain events and scenarios so that they can manipulate the timelines to their best advantage?
I think there's some credence with that. I really do. At the moment, the situation in Syria is not as it appears to be. There is a situation that goes on in Syria that is esoteric and occult driven, but appears to be in the media something else at one level. At one level, you've got the Mr. President there going in and doing the good fight, and at another level, Mr. Putin going in and doing the good fight against terrorism. And then you've got probably Mr. Putin praying to God for guidance, and Mr. Trump also praying to God for guidance. At the same time, the Russian people are told that the West is the enemy, and at the same time, the West are told that Russia is the enemy, and everybody's played like a fiddle, Taj. And it's the bit. Tell you what it is. It's all about. It's a bit quantum. It's a bit esoteric. It's all about watching a football match and seeing the net move. The football net moves, but we don't see the ball. We don't see the football that causes the net to move. But certain US agencies in the 1950s, even in the time of Eisenhower and President Reagan, even the certain kind of Russian intelligence psychic agencies knew that human affairs were being manipulated. There was an incident that happened to me 2 years ago with all this. I'm lucky to be alive. But basically, it kind of like goes with the nature of influencing situations and affairs and being in uncharted waters. And for some reason, it's not so much about timelines. I think it's about the control of consciousness and the feeding of that consciousness, and the feeding of fear. That is the situation. The thing is,
Tony, if for example, like the Americans have got black projects and manipulating time, the Russians have probably got the same projects. The Chinese probably got the same projects. So all these people are like trying to mess with timelines all at the same time, all, you know, wanting a different outcome. I mean, it sounds like chaos, doesn't it? Really, to be honest.
It is chaos. But what is kind of disturbing is that you have locked incidents. So what happens is you would think you've got these agencies like SETI, and you've got these agencies out there who are attempting communication with the ET. You've got NASA and a few other agencies. It doesn't work like that in real life. No. In real life, if they want to contact you, these people in the UFOs, they will do, and they will pick certain members of society that they want to speak to for whatever reason that may be, because they're very, very smart individuals. So they know kind of like what is going on. You will never get over the shock, Taj, of what they look like. You will never get over the shock of the reality that they exist in a paradigm system that says entirely the opposite. in a paradigm system where we can email each other instantly, but we're saber rattling with each other with aircraft carriers. The Russians are sending in their aircraft carrier that's bloody steam coming out of it. It's not even maintained correctly. America sends in its battle fleet, and here we've got this climate going on of war, and it's absolutely fucking outrageous what is going on at the moment because it has consequences. It's as if world leaders are completely blind and they're being warned. They are truly being warned, Taj, in ways that are very clever by people not of this earth.
Yeah.
What is interesting is if you were the controlling executive organization of human affairs, what I don't get is why you would want to destroy these countries, why you would want to go to war, why do you want to destroy what you've invested. I don't understand why you want to destroy.
We were talking about this last week with Mary Rodwell about it's almost going to have to come to the brink of World War III before they'll have to step in, like and
don't be under Charge. Don't be under. By the way, I'm not. Don't be under any illusion that they step in, that they are here on their white charger. Don't be under any illusion at all about what they're like, because it's in real life. It's not like that. In real life, there are many variables involved, including the fact that they have the same conflicts like we do. Don't expect anyone to come in on their white charger, which is disappointing, but it's true. They're going to intervene. Well, what point and where are they intervening? Where are they going to intervene? They didn't intervene in Hiroshima, did they? They didn't intervene in World War II, and they didn't intervene in World War One either. They have this unethical kind of witnessing, this kind of unethical stepping backness and observing events and doing nothing.
Surely, if they have the technology to see timelines, they can see what's going to happen, and they'll step in if it's pretty much the whole planet is annihilated.
There are currently 3 ET groups, as far as I'm aware at the moment, who are actively monitoring and watching all this. One of whom is the blonde, blue-eyed people we call the Nordic. And at times it's gone absolutely hair-raising with these experiences. The thing is that they communicate via a space-time continuum. They don't communicate in kind of like extraterrestrial SETI signals across with radio, astronomy, and all. It doesn't work like that. They communicate via consciousness and time. And what is disturbing about that is the kind of like the situation in that time continuum of signals that are locked in time of kind of like conflict and all this kind of thing, as if we're being manipulated by something that is at odds with those that are coming in to try and intervene. What I'm actually describing to you, Charge, is a hidden war, a hidden conflict behind the scenes that appears to be going on, and I have to be careful what I say on that. I'm trying to articulate something that happened to me just recently, where in 1997 I had my first incident when I saw an actual extraterrestrial woman who intervened in my dreamscape as I was sleeping. She literally walked in and she kind of like had her hair tied back. She had her back to me, and then she turned around and looked directly at me. It corresponds, her look, her features correspond with a police officer abduction in 1970s in Dallas, Texas. Same description, same woman. This woman in question in Linda Moulton Howe's book, High Strangeness, Volume 1, this woman was wearing, alien woman was wearing a uniform with a distinctive flash insignia. Now, I've seen this flash insignia on a second occasion as well on a Nordic ET. I'll come to that in a minute. I'll come to all that in a minute, actually, because it's interesting. But basically what happened was, she turned around, she looked at me and said, how do I look? Was her exact words. And she did not look human. And she had this beautiful features, all oriental looking, but very pronounced, slanted kind of pointed face, beautiful blonde flowing hair, beautiful green eyes. She was not human at all. And it shocked me a great deal. And she tied her hair back. And that was the last I saw of her until last week when she appeared on the scene again. Whoever she is has got real balls and is very brave, because I know, and I think the listeners of Utah to know what the human race is up against behind the scenes. She appeared again. So there is kind of some type of intervention going on that is beyond what we understand and even beyond what I understand. There is a type of intervention going on of some description, because I don't think they want it in their back garden, Taj. I don't
Right.
think
So,
it,
so are there like aliens and hybrids, whatever you want to call them, amongst us who are like in key positions, in whatever positions, who are controlling events? You know.
there is something non-human controlling human events. There definitely is, and the governments know this, including Mr. Putin, who's probably, believe it or not, and I'm not being an apologist for him, but I don't think he's any angel, but he's probably one of the few world leaders who is aware of this. There might be another one as well. I think the German world leader might be actually aware that this is going on as well. Germany are quite involved, surprisingly, in watching the UFO situation. But I tell this, Taj, from my experiences of the things flying over my house, the UFOs coming in over the house that I filmed, that you've seen on Facebook, and I also communicate with them as well. And I find it to be quite demanding. I find it to be quite hair-raising. And so, this ET woman appeared again last week, and I've not seen her for years. But she said to me, 17 long Earth years, she said, you've not seen, because she's been obviously behind the scenes, but she was showing me visions, Taj, or rather, she was showing visions to somebody, because in a time continuum, she's probably showing it to another party as well. It's quite complex, but this is in the area of kind of black projects and all this kind of thing, where any government agency or military organisation in the government frameworks that I've mentioned, if they communicated with ET, they wouldn't tell you, and they wouldn't tell the world either, because there's many variants to it. It's more complex than we actually realise. It really, really is extremely complex, because you're dealing with personalities, you're dealing with militaries, you're dealing with governments that are not of this earth. It's quite complex, you see. Anyway, she was showing me these visions, which have thoroughly shocked me. And I'll be responsible. We'll just say that it's kind of like visions of conflict. But because obviously, as you rightly said, Taj, earlier, they have the ability to move forward in time. They can see, it's like being painted a picture. They can see what's going on before we can. That's crucial to the grand scheme of things in trying to get a grip on world peace. At the moment, Mr. Trump is cranking up his military, and he's cranking up everything, isn't he? It wouldn't surprise me, perhaps, I don't know. I'm just surmising an opinion. That is all. It wouldn't surprise me if he gets a visit from the ghost of Christmas future, to put it very politely. With these people that are flying over the house, these UFOs are here for a reason. They're not here because they're here to be pretty. They're here to prevent something, I think. Definitely so.
Right.
And it shocked me a great deal, and made me feel very depressed what I saw. And it shouldn't have to be that way. It really, really should not. As Colonel Corso said in his book, I think it was The Day After Roswell, where he wrote this book about the technology that was recovered from the Roswell UFO crash. And these aliens, these ETs, cut a long story short, more or less, said a nice future if you can handle it. Human race can handle it. The future is there. So I don't know if you've got any questions, Taj, or can prompt me along.
The UFOs that are visiting you, are they like ours or theirs? I mean, are they our military, or are they?
No, they're theirs, mate. No, they're Nordic. They're blonde, blue-eyed. There is no mistaking them. In fact, at Christmas time, so I've reason to suspect. At Christmas time, I was ill. I was unwell. I was running a fever. It was a Saturday afternoon. I was laid on the bed. I'm a carer, so how the hell I managed was a miracle. But I was not well, Taj, and they turned up.
Yeah, I remember. I did a show with you just before Christmas.
Did you? Did
yeah.
you? It was during Christmas. Then it was after the show. They turned up after the show. Perhaps there's two things really I want to talk about with it, but we'll just go with this. So what happened was when I was asleep, not well, so I was asleep, and I was dreaming, and I got this kind of knock on the door, like a dream. I opened the door to find one of them stood there, blonde, blue-eyed guy who I'd seen previously about a year back, in an extraordinary vision. This extraordinary vision was brought to life by the illustrator Lloyd Canning about a year ago, 2 years ago actually. And that extraordinary vision, what they gave me was to do with two triangle craft, two clocks, which Lloyd Canning brought to life. Well, I don't know how Lloyd did it, but it was exactly the mirror image of the clocks they showed me. One was at 12:15, the other was at 5:12, and it was very, very interesting indeed what was going on. And they were warning. They were actually warning about the doom. It was like the doomsday clock, 4 to midnight, 5 to midnight, and it was giving focus. The two craft that were present in this vision, two big triangle craft, were giving focus to a location of a field near me, Taj. And I don't know whether your listeners know, but I think a few months later, there was a big air exercise over the town. You've never seen anything like it, as if we were being invaded. We had typhoons flying over. We had a Hercules from the Special Forces Aviation Wing flying over. It circled my house backwards and forwards 7 times, did this Hercules transporter. And some photos were taken of it flying around near a local aerodrome near here. And
Whereabouts is that?
That was Burn at Selby, North Yorkshire. And it was Burn Aerodrome. What this Hercules was doing, it was doing this routine kind of operational exercise of short landing, short takeoff kind of thing in a combat environment. So it comes in extreme angle, lands, turns around, takes off at extreme angle again. It was practicing. Except this guy, it was quite comical. This guy's passing the house backwards and forwards. He circled my house. It must have been about, I'm sure he waved at me as well. It must have been about 10 times backwards and forwards. He must have seen my ham radio. I have no idea, but he was definitely. But what it was all the attention was on that field. And what happens is that the RAF will routinely go in that field and exercise its Typhoon fighters over that field and so on and so forth. In fact, a few weeks ago, we saw two Typhoon fighters exercising directly over this estate, directly over the houses, as it were, which is a bit taboo, really, but that's what they were doing. And we ran some analysis on the photos and the film footage that I'd taken, and sure enough, in the background was a UFO that appeared to be in a triangular shape, appeared to be there. And so this kind of theme of warning, this kind of theme, continual warning, seems to go on. And as I say, Taj, I wasn't well on that Saturday. So what happened was, just going back to that vision, this man, he must have been in his 30s, blonde hair, blue-eyed. He was speaking to somebody, but he wasn't speaking to me during this vision. It was as if somebody had the volume turned down. He was speaking to someone, and we don't know who that someone was. I say we. I don't know who that someone was he was speaking to, but he was speaking to someone. And then that Saturday that I was ill at Christmas time, there was this bizarre knock at the door. It was as if I was in another reality out of my body. I came down the stairs, answered the door, and he stood there saying hello to me. And he's got, Taj, I'll never forget it, he's got this distinctive high-quality jumpsuit on, a better quality than kind of like what you see our pilots wear, with this flash insignia on his, that would be my left, would it? Yeah, on his left, this kind of rank signature kind of flash, I think it was white, blue and something else, on him to denote his rank. And he said hello to me, and then I remember distinctly this kind of strange sound as if I was aboard a craft, and I was taken to the Ribblehead Viaduct. Why I was taken to the Ribblehead Viaduct, I've no idea, but in my vision, he stood with me at the Ribblehead Viaduct. He's looking up at the structure and going, that is truly a marvellous piece of architecture, Anthony. Call me Anthony. I'm known as a Tony, but in some cases, they'll call me Anthony. And he's looking at it, and I'm looking at it with him, and I have no idea, Taj, what the hell is going on. And to say that I have would be misleading, but I'm just describing what happened. And then I was put back in my bed. 2 hours, I think, 2 hours missing, an hour and a half missing time, something like that,
Right.
where it looked as if I'd fallen asleep all of a sudden and woke up again.
Do you know why they're taking you? You know, is there
Yes, there is a reason, and that has to remain for my own personal safety. That will remain confidential. I'm sorry, but it just best because it's not charged, by the way, because I don't want to tell you. I'll tell you off. I'll tell you if I saw you. But it's kind of like we've got to be very careful. It's not. I've just got to be careful and responsible with the information that I kind of like know and glean and whatever. But basically, that the situation was that the next day I recovered from my fever and started feeling well again because I wasn't well. So it's almost as if they had intervened to make sure that I was. It's not the first time that they've intervened as well. On about 3 occasions they've intervened and saved my sanity. And there's been times when I've been kind of mysteriously psychic attacked, and I've heard them as if they stood in the room, commenting, telling me to keep calm. You know.
would you say that these Nordics are like your family kind of thing?
Yeah, in a way, yes. I would say in a way, yes, they are. I would say that they are related. It's probably related to who I once was. It's probably related to the fact that certain unique individuals are of interest to them. And it wouldn't matter, Taj, if you were the most dysfunctional guy in the world. If they're interested in you, they're interested in you, and they're not going to tell you why. They're a bit evasive as to, and probably actually, Taj, for your own safety, for my own safety, it's best I don't know. It might be best that I don't know the full picture, and it might be best that I don't know. It's best sometimes that they don't tell.
Yeah, we were talking a lot about this last week with Mary Rodwell. She's written a book about the Star Children, called The Real Human. I can't remember the name of the book now, but
that's right.
She was saying that most abductions, like 85%, are actually positive, and all it is that they're like helping, they're even healing children and healing people during these abductions. And I believe, anyway, that most of the bad abductions are actually military ones.
You'll be very shocked, Charge. You'll be very shocked that the bad abductions may not necessarily be military, but might be bad alien, not just military. I'm not ruling that out, but there's an element of it. You know, when they communicated with me, which was it's quite comical, really, what's going on in a dark way. It's quite comical because you've got this kind of backdrop of the world in chaos, man on a housing estate communicating with UFOs, obviously is delusional, obviously is lunatic, but yet you've got another element that knows that this is going on. I probably as a bet, if I was a betting man, that there are certain elements of government in more than one country that know this is going on over the skies of my town in Yorkshire, that know visitation is going on, that know for example, times the RAF are regularly over this field and are regularly coming over all the time in this particular area because they probably are getting radar returns, the UFOs are appearing, they'll continue to appear, the volume will be upped and they'll continue to appear. And I think our governments, in fairness to them, they face complex challenges, very complex, and it's quite a concern as to what is going on. And they said, these guys, they said, we are blonde, blue-eyed, we are many, we are varied, we are from Andromeda. We are blonde and blue-eyed, we are many, and we are varied, and we are from Andromeda, was the words they said. Because it's like a heretic thing. It's like scientific heresy, like saying that the Earth is flat. To say that our local group of galaxies are populated is heresy. It's the equivalent of saying, isn't it, that the Earth revolves around the Sun. Was the accepted site was frowned upon, wasn't it? Because everybody thought that the Earth was flat. It's the same kind of scenario to say that galaxies are there.
Yeah, a lot of people still think the Earth is flat, but we won't get.
And a lot of people do. Yeah, we'll get into that. But I'm using the premise of I'm using it as a scenario. It's the remark: "We are many and varied." That's the sentence. We are many and varied. I remember them saying it. Varied, many. So that means there's going to be people, personalities, problems, issues, because they're many and varied. It's not. It's more Star Wars than we would think out there. It's more kind of, yeah, it is. It's not kind of all new age and fluffy with them. They have their problems. I think they have their issues. They have their own governance. They have their own rules. According to these blonde blue-eyed people, there are some civilizations out there who don't even know Earth exists.
Yeah.
Which in the probability of things is probably quite actually, I would suggest probably pretty high really, because there's a Cambridge University professor who was chatting Taj about the probability now when they're finding planets, the probability of life now being discovered like us is very high indeed. And that was the biggest shocker of all, is that they look like us with slight variations. For me was the biggest shocker of all during the course of
Yeah. I think with a lot of alien races, we wouldn't even be on their radar. We would be pretty primitive in their eyes. They wouldn't really have any interest in us, even if they knew about us, would they? Really? I mean, I don't know what you think about that, but
they seem to have an interest in us, Taj. That's the thing. They seem to have a very big interest in us, contrary to popular belief, and they seem to indicate that their technological and scientific understanding is about 800 to 900 years ahead of us in terms of technology. I know there are remarks made on the internet that they're so many thousand years, but they're only in the probability of things about 900 years ahead of us. And give it time, I think about 150 years from now, we would be able to grasp certain aspects, certain elements of their science. It's kind of like we're not at that stage yet where we seem to be able to grasp their science. At the moment, we're at the stage of still in the World War II saber rattling, he's the good guy, he's the bad guy paradigm kind of thing, which is quite lousy, really. I do feel. The only thing that kind of like troubles me about this Taj is why don't they just get on with it and tell me what's going on, and why don't they leave some kind of scientific artifact here, like a hair, a piece of hair that I can analyse or something like that. That I'm being my own critique, but can they just not? Why is there a lot of contactees, in fact, say this, including me? Why is there all this vagary from them? Because they are vague. They don't tell you the full picture of what's going on. And I often wonder why there is all this vagary. But they're definitely in communication with someone, and they're definitely watching and observing human affairs. That they really are. And as we can see, America in the 1950s with an agency called the Collins Elite. I don't know whether I've talked to you about Collins Elite before, Taj. It's one of my favourite subjects, but there wasn't just MJ12. There was another agency out there called the Collins Elite. In fact, oddly enough, the Russians had an agency called SMERSH, Deaf to Spies, a special agency that rounded up Nazi spies. I got an email from a guy to say that his relative was in the diplomatic service in Spain, connected with Russia and all this kind of thing. And he'd found this diary, so he told me, he found this diary, Taj, not diary, handbook, that was issued to spies of SMERSH when they were out on patrol. These were the typical extraterrestrials that you needed to look out for in certain
right.
villages.
Yeah, I think I've seen that. I think I've seen that book. I've seen that book. Yeah.
You've seen it, yeah. So it's just very, very interesting. When you see what's going on, how they are, in fact, intervening in human affairs. It's very interesting indeed what is going on, because I think the world is waking up in some way. I think the United States is a key player, other than this, and I think they're a key player in this wake-up call. What's going on?
What do you think is going to happen this year then? What do you see happening this year? Do you see good stuff happening, bad stuff happening?
I think we're on a knife edge with North Korea. I think we are on a knife edge with North Korea. I think at the moment that the president will deploy his forces on North Korea. There are a number of highly complex security issues regarding UFOs, world affairs, world leaders, all that kind of thing. Charge. There's a very complex situation going on with all that. Because, of course, world affairs are not exactly dictated by human beings. And it's a very complex thing indeed. I cannot help but think that somebody wants a war. Somebody somewhere wants a war for some reason. And we're on this ridiculous mission creep towards it. At the moment, the relationship is slowly breaking down. with the Russians at the moment. The flames are being fanned for some hidden ulterior agenda.
Yeah, I think
Very,
most world leaders have been compromised to a certain extent. So, whatever their agenda is, they're using world leaders to uh, basically enact whatever their agenda is going to
but
be.
as,
Uh,
as Yeah, that's absolutely right. As I've so often said, Taj, when a world leader is asleep, where's his Secret Service cover? Where's his security detail? He doesn't have one, does he, when he sleeps? Do you get what
yeah,
I'm saying?
yeah,
That this is where with the work of important agencies like the Collins Elite, who were investigating certain elements of the UFO phenomena that led to the paranormal. The Russians as well. They had a special unit called Troop 10,003, headed by a Russian general. The Russians had certainly thoroughly researched it. In fact, the Russians, it's on my website. There's a Russian general talking about the Illuminati and all that kind of thing, which is basically down to the movements of people. The movements of people by the few. The movement of many people by the few is what they kind of like call it. And the Russians had extensively studied it, extensively studied this mysterious hand, and the Americans have as well. Probably the Germans have. All these governments seem to actually know this, but yet we're on this insane mission creep
mm,
to conflict, and I'm frankly baffled as to why that is happening, Taj. I
right.
frankly am. I don't quite get it myself, but I must be naive. Either I'm being naive because there are complexities, geopolitical complexities, that obviously, so it doesn't make it as clear cut, but still,
Tony,
from my
Tony, we're going to go to a break in a couple of minutes. I don't know if you can
right,
stay on for any longer,
yeah, okay,
but do you want to stay on for a little
yeah,
bit?
I'll give you 15 minutes, mate. Yeah, that's fine.
Are you doing any conferences or anything this year?
Yes, I will be, matey. In June, I'm speaking at High Wycombe. I think I'm speaking at UFO Academy. There haven't been many conferences this year. I tend to
Yeah.
get, there's only I can count on my hands about 5 people in the conference circuits that like to speak.
Okay, we're just going to break. If you just mute your microphones, we'll be back in a few minutes with Tony Topping.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
And welcome back to The Divine Truth on Revolution Radio with myself and my co-host this evening, Nyssa. Are you still there, Nyssa?
Hi, yes, I'm here.
And our guest this evening, Tony Topping. Hi, Tony, you still there?
Yes, I'm still here, mate. Yeah,
Before we continue with the show, I'd like to remind our listeners that this Revolution Radio is a listener-supported station. We do rely on your donations to keep us on air. Our target this month is $2,800, and we've reached so far $1,652. So if you would like to make a donation, please go to freedomslips.com and go to the support us section where you can buy one of our seed packs starting at only $60. All of our seed packs contain non-GMO, non-hybrid heirloom seeds, or you can make a one-off donation, or you can even join our monthly support club where you can donate every month starting at only $10. And we return to the conversation now with Tony we were having earlier. We're talking about conferences that you're going to be attending. Which ones are you going to be attending again?
Yeah, sorry. In June, I'm attending UFO Academy's Awake and Aware conference. We've got the one in High Wycombe, the paranormal meetup in High Wycombe. I think we've got Probe in October and New Horizons.
Right,
yeah, New Horizons St. Anne's. And the thing is, the material has to evolve all the time. It has to just evolve all the time. Although, in terms of kind of like the UFO community, apart from Probe and St. Anne's and the High Wycombe and UFO Academy, I do get smiled and waved at by other UFO researchers who just really think.
Yeah, we'll have to meet up. We'll have to meet up at one of the conferences. I was just at Probe a few weeks ago up in
Right.
St. Anne's, and I drove up there with Kieran. Don't know if you know Kieran
Right.
Lee Perrin.
Yeah.
We drove up there, and he was doing he was doing a talk there about TIs.
Yes, target individuals, yeah, which I'm certainly one of them. That in fact the phenomena is very, very real, and it's there are a lot of people who are being targeted because probably it's just something more. It's probably the realization that our reality is being controlled in some way, and some people walk into that without realizing it, and then realize it and become awake and realize that the reality around us isn't quite as it appears to be. And this is what can go on, Taj, with it. It certainly can. I don't know whether you've got any questions or any things to ask me at all.
Yeah, it's funny. I just mentioned targeted individuals. I mean, I started my channel, Taj Investigates, specifically to like help targeted individuals, I guess, in a way. And even this show, I want to interview people who can help targeted individuals and try and explain their experiences and why it's happening to them. And it's a sort of a journey that I've been on really for a few years, and that people have come to me and contacted me and saying, all this stuff is happening to me and I don't understand why. Why am I being targeted? Why am I being abducted? Why am I being contacted? I'm trying to work out in a way, I guess, some kind of common ground for why this is happening to all these people. Wondering if you had any kind of views on that as to why.
Yeah. Well, in general, some of it is dark military experimentation with mind control. Some of it is because people are becoming spiritually awake, and some of it is because of the dumbing down of human consciousness and the control of human consciousness. If you want to control something, you're not going to go down the street with your UFO with your laser beam blasting at everything. You're going to kind of move into an area where people don't see you, and that's how probably you would manipulate things from that point. And it's very real, Taj. Equally as real and disturbing is the number of delusional and fantasist individuals that you will meet, or I have met, that claim to work for government agencies, claim to be secret agents, claim this, claim that. And the problem is, what is interesting has happened to me a few years back, is a guy came a considerable distance to speak to me about UFOs, claimed this, claimed that, claimed he worked for a certain agency. And the thing is with it is that these things are coming over the house and they're talking to me and giving me snippets of information and building me a picture. And with that, it kind of can get pretty embarrassing when somebody's talking who claims that they know what they're talking about and is trying to get information out of you. And so for some whatever agenda that is. And so I find it's best that you let them do all the talking and tell them nothing. The thing is there's been some moments where people have been what I believe to be fantasists, delusional individuals who think that they work for the government or think that they work for some sort of clandestine agency. And that in itself, believe it or not, is very hard work indeed.
Who are these people then? Why would they be coming you pretending to be from an agency? What are they trying?
I don't quite know, Taj, as to why. I had a couple of emails from some clown a few months back claiming also. I had one guy email me who claimed that he worked for Air Intelligence, US Air Intelligence, and the letter, the email was very well written. Talking about national security, talking about an open door policy with UFOs, that we of the Air Force believe that if there's anything that is of a threat to the security of the United States, we want to know about it, and we want to know it all, and we want to know as much as possible. Can you help us? This, that, and the other. We'd like a more open policy about UFOs. I'm thinking, this is splendid, Taj. Absolutely splendid. I emailed Steve Merritt. I said, Steve, get a load of this. This guy, Air Force Colonel, this is unprecedented. Wow, says Steve. Photograph of him, Taj, in a military uniform.
Right.
So I thought, So of course I do kind of security checks on people. I kind of have my own little way of security checking people. So I ran this check, which was very revealing. The photograph was referring to indeed a lieutenant colonel, commander, whatever he was in the US Air Force. But the photograph was of somebody who had been in prison for child pornography charges within the Air Force, who held the rank of lieutenant colonel. And they used that photo of that individual as him. So you could see where this was kind of going. And we had the mysterious email from somebody who claimed to be part of a secret agency called Agency 33, who knew of my abilities. In fact, didn't just know Taj, but was aware of my abilities. And in fact, all credit to me, because they wouldn't be as insane as I am to go public with what I'm coming out with. And it went on and on and on. We want you to join us. You will be allocated a mentor. He is called 33, this, that, and blah, what on. And then I'm thinking to myself, well, but they didn't want anything from me, Taj, in this email. They didn't want anything from me. So I kind of sent him an email back saying that I've got the bloody things over my house. I'm having some fascinating communication. What could you want from me? Because I don't want anything from you. And with that, the situation can turn kind of sour. And I got this email saying, do this, do that, remove your YouTube channel, this, that, and the other. It was absolute bullshit, frankly. I didn't comply with any of it. But over the years, there was a guy who thought he worked for Mossad. He turned up. A guy who said that he worked for the Israelis, which was quite bizarre. I've had a friend of mine who had terrible problems with a female who claimed that she worked for the Eastern Lodge, the Eastern Star, the female Illuminati. Came out with a load of spiel to her about how she, my friend, was causing the problems. It was this, that, and the other, and she wanted her to be recruited into MI5 and this kind of thing. A routine check, Taj, a routine investigation on who this woman was, because this lady, this friend of mine, showed me some information that this woman had left her, which left a trail. So a routine check was very revealing that woman was not who she said she was at all. And it was a great relief for my friend, because she'd been put through hell with this woman, who was obviously a fantasist, and believed that she was somebody to do with all that. I assume, Taj, that when you come across these people who work for these agencies, they're not going to tell you, are they?
Yeah, well, I've had a similar experience where someone has contacted me through a mutual friend, and I've Skyped with them maybe 5 or 6 times, and they claim to be working for an organization called ACIO. I don't know if you've heard of that,
ACIO, yeah. I know ACIO.
And basically they've asked me lots of questions. They're basically trying to work out who I am, what I do, what experiences I've had, etc. And I put this person in touch with a lot of other people in our community as well. But eventually I sort of worked out that the guy was a fraud to a certain extent. And what he was doing was he was contacting possible MILABs, military abductees, and working out sort of at what stage they were they awake. He was trying to trigger people to see if their triggers still worked and stuff like that. So he was almost like checking up on MILABs I don't know if you've come across anyone like that before.
I had an email the other day from a contactee in Czechoslovakia who actually this contactee in Czechoslovakia had actually spoken to a genuine Czechoslovakian government minister about her UFO contacts, because the Czechoslovakian authorities are kind of like monitoring the UFO situation. They were actually one of the first people to develop psychic warfare, so they will be interested in that kind of thing. And I do believe that this lady was not having me on it. She gave the bloke's name. There's even a photo of him stood with her and what he had to say about it, which I found fascinating that she was approached. I think that was genuine. ACIO, do you know what that stands for, Taj?
I think it's like the Alien Contactee something organization.
Yeah, it's Advanced Contact Intelligence Organization,
Yeah.
and it's meant to be part of the department of the National Security Agency. And they meant to have this. They have this site called the Wingmakers website, and within the Wingmakers website, there are some
I'm very familiar with that. I'm very familiar with that website.
Well, that's right. So ACIO is part of the Wingmakers, and it's headed by a mysterious man called 15. And there's this kind of thing. And it kind of like talks about time travel, doesn't it? And it talks about the Wingmakers and the sovereign integral, and a technology called blank slate technology. You'll probably find, Taj, that the cracks appear because you maybe didn't tell him a lot as he was yakking onto you. Am I right to assume that? I don't know, but you probably find.
Yeah, well, I was a bit dubious about him in the first place, and he didn't really, he said, "Oh, I can give you all your MyLab files." He said, "I have access to all the security services, all the databases. If you give me your name, your date of birth, where you were born, etc., I will access your MyLab files, and I'll tell you." He told me like I had 2,000 files on me or something ridiculous like that. But he didn't give me specifics as to like, what missions I'd been on, or that type of thing. He wouldn't give me specifics. He was very vague. He said, "Oh, this is when you were recruited, and this is how you were recruited. This is the stuff that you've been doing. You're a computer hacker. You're a quantum computer hacker. All this type of stuff." It was all very vague though, but he wouldn't give me specifics at all.
No. The agency that are truly involved in the UFO game is the most nondescript agency that's in plain view, and you would never think in a million years. Well, you would. You wouldn't think that they were so involved in it, but they are. There's one agency out there that's a military organisation that's probably involved in the UFO phenomena very deeply. And then what is surprising, Taj, is it's surprising. During the course of my experiences, I came to learn that the army, not the air force, the armies of certain countries are very interested in the UFO phenomena. Armies, not kind of air forces you would think, although they'll be interested. But it seems to me the land armies are certainly interested. It's interesting because Colonel Corso made an interesting remark in his book the day after Roswell, because he worked for the U.S. Army Foreign Acquisitions Technology Department, but the Army didn't mean foreign as in foreign country, they meant foreign as in alien. And it's interesting because he said that the United States Army was one of the few organizations that was not infiltrated by any other agency. So they had this kind of, so the story goes, I keep an open mind, they had this back-engineered technology from a crashed UFO that influenced fiber optic cables, so the story goes, that influenced our technology greatly, brought on developments in technology as well. He back-engineered it through American corporations. But he said he couldn't go anywhere else he couldn't go to other agencies because the Russians were active, or another foreign country was active, and he couldn't give them that information. And it's just interesting to note that the position of, as he said in his book, the position of the army in a country like Britain or in a country like America to uphold the security of that nation is still present today, which is perhaps a reassuring thing. But
I was in contact with someone earlier this week. I won't mention his name, but he's a colonel in the U.S. Army.
Yeah.
And he's actually quite high ranking in the Army's space division, which I didn't realize the Army had a space division.
Yeah, but, that's right. That's absolutely right. This is the thing. But the UFO intervention currently is all about cooling it down with human conflict. It's all about the superpowers and our leaders stepping back from the brink because there's too much to lose. There's just too much to lose, you see. That's the thing. I mean, you talk about the European market. What happens if there's an alien technology market out there? What happens? The thing is, Taj, is I don't get with these blonde blue-eyed peoples and their fantastic crap why they don't turn up at a military base somewhere. Why they don't just turn up at an RAF base? Maybe it's not that simple, but why don't they just get on with it? Why is there all this fannying around and vagary? Why can't people just get on with it?
I think a lot of it may be to do with trust, really. They don't trust the army, the military, governments.
They don't. No, that's very true. I don't trust them. I trust nobody. I have no friends in this business, including the ones that fly over my house. I can't have, because if I was to trust the people, Taj, you're on a slippery slope. I've had a few falling outs myself along the way with people who I thought I could trust, but I didn't. So what I do is I try and be kind to everyone and walk with a very big stick as well in this game. But yeah, there are fantasists out there. They most certainly are. That guy in the army you mentioned, is that the Aquino controversy then, where we were going to somebody?
Yes, it is. Yeah, yes, it is.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of ruckus this week about all that, but I won't go into that.
Right. Okay. He's meant to be the Satanist mind control guy. Is that right?
That's
Got
right.
The right guy. It's controversial of you and brave, Taj. Brave to speak with him. So he's obviously this man who I don't know a lot about really. He's obviously kind of looking at the UFO situation and looking at what's going on. Is that right? And he's still employed as a colonel, is he? He's still a rank, is he? In the army?
He's a retired colonel in the U.S. Army. He's also a Green Beret. He's also an officer in Special Forces. I mean, his resume is like 15 pages long, but you know, I was gonna have him on my show, but there was a lot of backlash and stuff about it, which I made a decision not to have him on the show after all.
I see. Yeah, I see. Yeah. So he's the real deal. There's a lot of fantasies out there that there really isn't. It's disturbing, Taj. It's disturbing the level of fantasists and deluded people that kind of come your way when you're dealing with all this. It certainly is. And then you've got the people who are taking photos, and they're taking a photo of Jupiter, or they're taking a photo of Venus, or they're taking a photo of a satellite. That kind of thing as well. And so you're up against the media. There was an article that I wrote for the Daily Express, except what I wrote and what he wrote were two entirely different things altogether. It was potentially libelous. It was an absolute disgrace what the Daily Express did to me. So you've got this theme of this constant mockery. You've got this theme of this kind of constant. Yeah,
we've
mockery.
had a similar thing with the whole Max Spears thing. I know you probably don't want to talk too much about that, but when we put it all out in the media, there was so much wrong information put in the mainstream media.
Well, that's right.
Dates that were wrong, information that was wrong.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like you sort of hope that they'll put the story out properly when you give them the story, but a lot of it. I mean, the mainstream media I don't really know what to say about the mainstream media these days, to be honest.
No, this is right, man. This is right. They referred to Kerry Cassidy as a blogger, didn't they? Kerry Cassidy, a blogger, and she wasn't very happy over that because they referred to her as that. I got a couple of emails about it, but I refused to comment for my own safety. I didn't want to go down that route.
I mean, you have your own. You sort of have your own experiences, with dealing with mainstream media, with Channel 4 and the Great UFO Conspiracy.
Yeah, that's right.
All that type of thing. I've seen you on morning show, on the Good Morning Show, stuff like that.
That's right.
It's never like treated seriously. Is it really? It's almost like treated as a bit of a joke. A lot of this stuff, the UFOs, aliens. Oh God, they're coming to get us. In the mainstream anyway.
I totally agree, and really, at the end of the day, I think that we should have contactee experience, should have similar rights to transgender community. We should have that similar right. I'm a member of the National Union of Journalists, and I haven't got round to it yet, but I was wanting to debate with their ethics committee, or send an email to their ethics committee regarding the way we are treated and the way the media looks at us. And I'd be interested to hear the NUJ and their ethics committee and what they have to say about it, because I think it could start an interesting dialogue. Because I don't think you're a member of the NUJ, Taj, but you're a broadcaster, aren't you? You're doing your thing, and we shouldn't be expected to be ridiculed in the way that we are ridiculed. At the end of the day, the Max Spears thing, where they did a documentary about him, thousands of pounds in production monies with the production companies and the broadcaster being exchanged, and somebody made money out of it, which is very disappointing. Somebody made money out of that, and that's I think equally disappointing. If I'm not wrong, I might be wrong on that, but I think somebody did somewhere, did they not?
Yeah, but the documentary itself was, in my opinion, completely pointless because it didn't actually reveal anything new.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, to call, I don't know if they would call it investigative journalism, but I didn't see any investigation going on. There's
Yeah.
nothing in the BBC documentary that couldn't be found on YouTube or in a newspaper article somewhere. So,
Yeah. It's very
uh,
true. It's very
but
true.
again, it's like we say, you know, they take it as a bit of a joke. So why would they spend time investigating it? Really, it's
Yeah, that's absolutely right. They took the money and ran on it, I think, basically, with the production company, and they made a nice little documentary about it all. And accuracy flew out the window, didn't it? It just literally it just flies out the window sometimes, doesn't it? And there's always the occupational hazards as well of comedians turning up doing these documentaries about UFOs, and it's hosted by a comedian, so you know you're going to be in trouble there as well. So yeah, I have times. I've had my experiences with the media on this. I'm wanting to do something though that would firmly put my experiences on the map, and I think the only route with that is to take some outstanding UFO footage. I need some outstanding photos, outstanding film footage of their craft, and an artifact of some description would help me tremendously. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. When I go to sleep tonight, I'll sleep in a different world. I'll hear things, I'll see things. I'm being watched over, and it's quite not a pleasant environment to be in. Sometimes it can get very, very hair raising, and I don't know why. You see, I just can't understand why it's happening, and a lot of contactees cannot understand quite why it's happening. But it's knowing when to hit the stop button, and knowing when to just sit back and kind of like just kind of like take it in.
There is there is another documentary coming out soon that Vice are doing on the targeted individuals. I don't know if you've seen the trailer for that.
No.
There's a few people in that. Kieran's in it, and Sarah's in it. Dave Marrow's in it. Vanessa's in it. Max's mother, and a few others. And I believe they came to the basis conference, and they interviewed a few people there, just as they were interested in the story of Max, you know, what happened to Max, and it sort of turned and sort of like exploded into this documentary about targeted individuals.
Right.
In the angle of the targeted individual, sort of like, I guess, saying in a way that Max was a targeted individual. It's not a term that I've heard used in mainstream media. So for someone like Vice to take it on, I think is, you know, a step in the right direction anyway.
Oh yeah, no, I do agree with Miles Johnson. Love him or hate him, people hate him, people love him. I do agree with this thing where you've got to engage with the mainstream media, and you have, quite simply, you have got to engage with the mainstream media on all this. You certainly have. At the moment, I'm just completely lost with it all, Taj. At the moment, I've got so much intellectual property, so much footage, so much data, a website that I'm just overwhelmed with it all. And of course, I've got the caring duties as well, which tends to tire me a great deal. So I'm kind of like, it's all on top of me. I've got to write a book. I'm all kind of lost with it. But then if you were targeted, that's very beneficial, isn't it? If you're targeted by something that doesn't want you to do all that, this is an ideal scenario, and a very soft way of kind of like controlling it, keeping it quite very soft. You've got to think like this all the time. You've got to be a little bit paranoid, I think, with it, because this is what can go on behind the scenes, Taj, where you get strange goings on, and there is in the UK a secondary surveillance state the public don't see regarding mind control and mind invasive technology, and it's very concerning, very worrying. And there is in terms of UFOs anyway, there is an unelected secret police that keep an eye on all this, and that will kind of like make life unpleasant for certain individuals for whatever reason. It's the vagary, Taj, the not knowing why, that's quite worrying with it.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, from um, everything that's happened, since Max passed away, it's sort of like brought it to the attention of the mainstream a bit more than maybe otherwise it would have done. But we'll have
Yeah,
to see, how this Vice documentary portrays targeted individuals, and
yeah, yeah.
if they actually
It's
do take it seriously, or if it's another one of these,
yeah,
oh, these guys are, schizophrenic,
yeah,
weirdos, or
yeah. This is
whatever.
yeah. The usual labelling that we get when in fact it's a genuine crime. It's a genuine high tech crime, and it's also a miscarriage of justice for the fellow targeted individuals that have gone through this. It's a complete and utter miscarriage of justice in a very unorthodox way, isn't it? When you think about it. It certainly is. On that note, Taj, it's getting on for 12:30. I'm very tired, and I'm going to bid your audience and your good selves good night. I'm glad I could have helped you out, and I hope that it's made an interesting show.
Yes, it has. It has been interesting. So if anyone wants to
It
get a hold
has.
of you,
Thank you very much, Tony.
hi,
Oh,
Nissa.
hello. She was.
I
We
thought you,
forgot
I,
all about
I
you.
thought you'd
The
gone to
other
sleep. I thought you'd
I
gone
was
to sleep.
listening. I was
Bless you.
listening. It was
Before I
amazing.
go, Ernest, have you got any questions? Just before I go, have you got any questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly say, do you feel that first of all, do you feel that there are different ET races, different ET groups that influence different countries, and perhaps that's why there's this ongoing conflict? Or do you feel that it's more a bigger picture than that, and that the ETs are playing the good cops and the bad cops to push us to evolution? Because Taj said earlier that we had to get to the tipping point before we check. Well, he actually said before they come in and help. But do you think it's more that they want us to get to our own tipping point so we change, so that we actually wake up and take responsibility for ourselves instead of just continuously destroying ourselves?
Well, this is it, you see. But the thing is with it, it's interesting to know that there's a contactee in New Zealand who's a friend of mine called Alec Newell, and he was travelling down the road to Auckland in New Zealand. Next minute, he knows 10 days have elapsed. He's 20 miles from where he is, and he's got guys knocking on his door at his flat because they want to seize his car because his car has been subjected to high electrical voltage. According to the book, these guys who knocked on his door, one guy was from the Royal Institute of International Affairs, and the other guy was from the Australian Defence Research Agency. He had no idea why they turned up on his door. They wanted his car. It all turns out when you get into the book, it turns out that he had been abducted by dimensional ETs, interdimensional ETs, not just people like us on other planets, dimensional ETs, which is a different ball game altogether with ET contact. In fact, it's absolutely the science and the complexity behind that is incredible. But it's interesting to note that in a certain page of his book, he thought that he was dead, and he saw these ghosts approaching, but they weren't ghosts. They were ETs, and he was in another dimension. And according to Alec, this ET, it's probably the world's most underrated book on UFO abduction, really. According to Alec, this ET made this very profound sentence, which was that they were aware of Earth. They were here on Earth, treaties had been made with governments and so on. But the Earth is ruled by a dark force that is a form of life that should be respected. So the ETs knew that there's an overriding force that rules that should be respected, and that's it. So it's kind of like it's not many groups; it's an overriding ancient force that kind of like controls human affairs. Um, that's the situation. It's the most profound sentence because it's correct. It's absolutely correct. Based on my 40 years' experience of dealing with this, that remark is absolutely correct. That's what it's all about. And of course, there are many different groups out there that look like us. There's one group called the Avians. People call them the Avian group. They look bird-like from what I've seen, and from what other people have seen, and they're very worldly wise. And then you've kind of got the group that's to do with plasma, a plasma entity group, as reported in the Indian media about UFOs connected to plasma and plasma beings. Once again, very worldly wise people. So the question is, at what point is intervention occurring? I personally think that it's intervention at a divine level, at a celestial level. It's intervention that is going on that is actually so complex, it is cutting edge for these extraterrestrial groups. It's esoteric, but it's their version of esoteric and not our version of esoteric. So it's complex. There's a very complex scenarios that are going on at the moment. But I hope that just explains what's going on, because what is written about what's going on is very different to what is going on with these ETs and these groups, most definitely.
Yeah, thank you.
Tony, do you want to, like, if anyone wants to contact you, do you have any contact information you can give out?
Yeah.
I know you're on Facebook, but
I'm on Facebook. You can't miss me. I'm on Facebook. I'm also on Twitter, and I'm also tonytopping.wordpress.com. The website is due an upgrade and all that kind of thing. I'm taking filming footage all the time, and I'm just waiting for that killer definitive piece of film that can validate what I'm saying. Is what I'm looking for. That definitive UFO footage that says, "Here we are. This is it," and that's really all I can hope for just at the moment. Because to say, Taj, that I've got the landing strip set up in the backyard and I'm ready to welcome the Space Brothers, it doesn't work like that in real life. In real life, it's a fog of confusion. Nobody knows what the hell's going on, including me. I'm trying to piece it all together, but it's very difficult, and that's how it is in real life when you're dealing with the UFO situation, and you see all kinds of things. And it's not a pleasant ride sometimes either. Not a pleasant ride at all.
okay. Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show tonight. I know it was last minute, so
yeah. I nearly fell asleep. You're lucky, because I nearly fell asleep, and then I came downstairs to realise my phone was there, and I thought, oh my God, so I'm glad I came on and helped you. Thank you very much, mate.
Well, thank you for coming on, Tony, and I'm sure we'll speak again soon, and maybe even meet up at a conference later this year.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I take it this goes up online. Does it go? I can put a copy of this.
Yeah, it'll go online. It'll go online in a couple of days on my YouTube channel.
On your YouTube channel. Thank you very much, then, Taj, and I bid you listeners good night.
Okay, good night, Tony.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Mel. Bye.
Thank you.
Well, Nyssa, I thought you'd fallen asleep for a minute there.
I was listening. I didn't want to interrupt too much. Yeah, that was very interesting.
It was interesting. What are your thoughts and feelings about what Tony was saying?
Yeah, well, he said an overriding force, didn't he, that ultimately is in control, which is true, as you have the universe is ultimately in control, I suppose.
Yeah, I've heard this sort of idea that, I think Sarah said it before, there's like a dark energy surrounding the Earth that I guess in a way it's controlling and influencing what's happening on the planet, but it's very difficult to describe what it is, I guess. I guess some people could say it's some kind of AI or alien intelligence, or, like I asked Benjamin Fulford about the planets under quarantine. So who's put the planet under quarantine? Is there like a race out there that says, okay, well, this planet's under quarantine until they stop fighting, or until something happens, or until some kind of change happens. But I can't see that would be down to like one person to decide that, or I don't know really.
I think it's under quarantine because we've put it under quarantine with our own consciousness. Because when our consciousness gets to the point when we're ready, then the veil that is between us and so much more will just dissolve, because our consciousness will expand. Because we can't see that far at the moment, can we? I suppose we're stuck in conflict with each other as humans.
That's true, yeah, but if we're waiting for that to happen, then
we can't wait. We have to actually evolve our consciousness and
what, the whole planet?
Well, it's like individuals have to enlighten themselves, take responsibility for their own spiritual growth, it's very interesting, isn't it? Because I remember years ago I looked into the origins of humans, because it's pretty obvious that humans aren't we're not really native to this planet. We wouldn't survive without technology for very long. It's obvious, that we didn't really evolve here.
Yeah, it's sort of like
But
an alien environment to a certain extent. The Earth
yeah,
is an alien
yeah,
environment. It's like every other creature on this planet sort of like belongs here and can
has
survive here.
evolved. Yeah,
Survive well.
exactly.
But if you were to like, take a person, put them in the middle of the Amazon completely naked and expect them to survive, I don't know how long they would manage. But I was actually watching a program the other day about there are very few civilizations left on planet Earth that are like have never embraced technology. I think there was like one tribe in the Amazon, and I think even they have now been contacted by, I guess we call the Western society, and started to embrace technology to a certain extent. So there is no one really on the planet now who isn't affected by technology, which I don't know what to say about that
Yeah.
really. But
Well, I looked into, with that train of thought, I looked into the works of Lord Pi, and he was the man who had the Star Child's skull, which was basically an alien skull that he had, and it was DNA tested, and it wasn't human. And he looked into genetics and the genetic codes, and he could see how our genes had been meddled with. We had two fused together. You can easily look his works up on YouTube or the internet. Lord Pi. I think it was called "Everything You Know Is Wrong" or something like that. And he showed how basically our bone structure, our bones aren't even anything like primates. They're too fragile. They're more designed for like space travel, and our skin isn't very effective against the
yeah, it's
sun.
not very durable.
Yeah, and it's thin, and it's we're not really designed for that at all. And and then you look at the whole Anunnaki legends, don't you? You have
Yeah, well, it makes you think like, why didn't they breed a race that could survive on the planet more better than we can? If they're going
for
to engineer
control. Yeah, for
control.
control purposes, because if we could just say, oh, sod this, I'm going to go and live in the woods and, sort of grow my own food and just live, out in the elements, then you can't control me with energy prices, and and shelter and all that kind of stuff, can they? But we still have that mindset, that kind of slave mindset of being looked after, and is someone going to save us? Is someone going to
Yeah,
come and save us? It's like children. It's a bit like the parents have kind of like left us, and humanity's like Macaulay Culkin in Home Alone. It's just kind of like
yeah,
he's stuck at home and he's like, where's my parents? It's kind of like that, and we're just kind of
yeah.
like still
We've been
being
let
babies.
we've been let to run amok
Hmm.
kind of thing, really, which is what kids do when they're left alone.
Yeah, exactly. And there's obviously been a few that have been left behind to oversee, but then obviously they've fallen into bad habits, and probably really enjoyed the power trip.
Yeah, yeah,
So there's a few people who understand the symbology and the true history, and understand the way that this like constant mind control is working on the masses. But then the masses, obviously, there's massive depopulation programs like in progress with like food and stuff like that. And keeping consciousness low is like a major thing. Um,
yeah. I guess
just
basically, if people do start waking up, then as more and more people wake up, then they're going to have they're going to have a problem, aren't they? Really, because people will realize that you know, everything's a lie. You know, our history is a lie. What we've been taught in school is a lie. You know, we're being poisoned by our food, by chemtrails, by everything around us. You'd have a lot of pretty pissed off people, wouldn't you, really?
Yeah, I find people do, the first reaction is they get angry.
Yeah.
Not that being angry is bad if it's used in the right way. But then usually people will become angry when they first realize these things, and then they'll get addicted to watching things on YouTube about, you know, sort of like how the government's out to get them and all that kind of stuff. And they'll just get in this spiral of all that kind of thing. When if we're going to expand consciousness, then we have to progress to like how we going to solve it, you know, like need to learn how to grow our own food. We need to reconnect with our local community. We need to like move onwards instead of focusing on the how bad it is, letting it get bad and then thinking that, oh, someone's going to save us.
Yeah, I sort of have I think there are even in the awake community there are different levels of being awake. You know, just like compared to like 5 years ago, you know, 5 years ago I thought I was awake and I knew things, but now compared to, you know, how I see myself 5 years ago, I thought I must have been pretty fucking stupid 5 years ago, really. Excuse my language, but I think there are different levels of being awake. There are people who are coming into the awake community just realizing stuff like 9/11 was a lie and Sandy Hook was a lie. They've only just realized that when other people have known that for years, and trying to find, you know, obviously for me, like you said, I was angry, but then who am I going to be angry at? Who do I say, you know, I blame you for this, I blame that person for this? There's no like one person you can go after and say, you did this to me, you lied to me, you did all this stuff to me. There's no, you know, if you've got like someone you can direct that anger to, then great, but most people don't. When they start to wake up, oh, the government's lied to them, you know, everyone's lied to them, you know, so who do you go after? You know, where do you direct that anger? There's no way, there's no way of directing that anger. You can stay angry for forever, really, in a way.
Yeah, I mean, anger for me is I think anger is kind of just like when your energy is just needs to be focused on something. It's just a build up that it needs a focus. So it could be really useful if you need to get something done. Righteous anger, not destructive anger, but righteous anger can really push something forward, because it just gives you that massive drive. Because a lot of people are in a state of numbness, and a lot of the teachings in like the New Age movement is about keeping people in the numb state and convincing them that it's a Zen state when actually it's a numb state, when you should be experiencing a full range of emotions.
Yeah, I think that's like when I started waking up, I started watching so many YouTube videos, and it puts you in a state of, like you say, a bit of numbness, fear, because you know you're already in fear because you're angry. You're angry at the world, you know, for what's happened to you. You know, you've woken up to, you know, the lie, and then you're watching YouTube videos all day about the lie that you've been told, and it makes you more angry because you find out more stuff about what you've been lied to about. You know, it's like a perpetual sort of cycle. You've got to get out of that and think, okay, I know I've been lied to now, so you know, what can I do about it? You like move on
Yeah,
and say, okay, I'm going to leave
I'd say
that.
the next step. Yeah, I'd say the next step is to look into the symbology, the ancient, the actual true knowledge. I'm trying to think what it would be called, but it's like the true symbology that they use in like occult as a word just means hidden. So it's like the sacred knowledge. A lot of it has been like twisted and turned into fear. But a lot of it is to do with like how to enlighten yourself and to understand how reality works. How we are projecting our thoughts, how like Tony was saying about the guy who found that his thoughts were actually changing events in such a degree that he was changing complete timelines and things. So when we understand what we're capable of and who we are, then we can use that to our advantage instead of it being used against us. Because when you are sort of like in hypnotic trance or you're numb, you're always receiving messages to your subconscious through symbolism.
Yeah, that's true. You still there, Nissa? Nissa, you've gone. I can't hear you. Oh, I think we've lost Nissa. I think. Nissa, you there? Hello. Let me just try and get Nissa back on. It has been a weird evening, a weird week. I think I've lost Nissa. So, got a few minutes left.
Can you hear me?
Oh, you're back. There you are.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, you just sort of like went quiet.
Yeah, I've just had to take my headphones out, so now I can barely hear you.
All right.
Yeah, I can't remember where I was now. What was I saying?
Talking about symbology. You're talking about symbology.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so basically, if you learn how to create your own sigils, which you can look on YouTube or on the internet, how to create your own sigils to program your own consciousness, and to understand the thoughts and to monitor your own thoughts, and then you are beginning to, instead of just ingesting the information that's being pumped into you 24/7 to get the results that society wants, then you can actually use it to get the results you want out of life.
Yeah. So you're like basically coming out of like the brainwashed state and going into more awake, aware state.
Yeah, just conscious living. Because when you're frightened, everything shuts down and you can't manifest, and you're not actually in the flow. So the closer you are to your bliss, to like whatever makes you really, really happy, the more synchronicities you'll have and the more life will just flow.
Well, they like to keep us in like a state of fear, and you can't really manifest anything good if you're in a state of fear all the time.
Yeah, that's true. That's why you need to figure out what it is that you love, and
focus on that.
Yeah, I mean, not to block out the bad stuff. I mean, a good example would be like someone who really enjoys being a paramedic or really enjoys being a doctor. They're not the doctors in Syria are the people that run orphanages, things like that. They're not blocking themselves out to the dark side, to the terrible things, but they're still living in their bliss. So they're happy and they're having frequency, they're having synchronicities, they're in their frequency, and they're helping other people as well. So it all fits together.
Yeah.
And then, like on the other hand, you might really enjoy painting, and you have no idea how that's going to help someone else.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Again, I think most people busy living their day-to-day lives. I think most people don't really like the jobs that they do. It's good if you can find a job. I
think we've been taught that work is hard and happiness comes at a price. I think somewhere along the line, and this all goes back to the beginning of humanity, when you have like it's a legend that the Anunnaki made us to basically mine their gold, to be their slaves, to be a slave race. So the programming from the very beginning would have been, you're born in sin, you've got to work really hard, like, and for some reason that's stuck so badly that people believe that if something good happens to them, then something bad's going to happen to them, or that they don't deserve good things, and they don't have a lot of value. So everyone's in this kind of like mindset that life has to be really, really hard.
Yeah, that's true. But
Yeah.
I guess
So somehow,
once you become more awake, though, that's sort of like that thinking gets brushed aside. I think a lot more. Don't you think that, you know, once you realise it doesn't have to be that way, then you can actually change it. You can change. You know, you can manifest a better life, a better future.
Yeah,
but you have
definitely.
You have to be aware of it in the first place. That you are.
Yeah, exactly. You have, exactly. I mean, if you're sick, you have to know that you're sick before you can get better. You need to know what's wrong with you, and it's going to be something really. If it's going to be something really bad, it's going to be something really bad. But then you learn then what you need to do to get better again.
Yeah, it's a bit like just came to mind the movie The Matrix, where you want to take the blue pill, you want to get better. Do you want to take the pill that makes you better, or do you want to take the pill that puts you back to sleep?
Yeah, exactly. But then you do have that. There was that guy, wasn't there, who was like the Judas in that, and he do you remember in the Matrix there was a guy, and he made a deal.
Put
to
me
go
back to
back
sleep.
in.
Yeah, if I betray my friends, you can put me back to
Yeah.
sleep. But I want to be a millionaire. I want to have everything. I want to have a good life. But it's all fake. It's all fake though. Yeah.
But the people at the top do know that it's fake. But even though that they know that it's fake, they will enjoy the role.
Yeah,
So
I
you just
guess
have to be careful. Yeah.
they'd rather live a life asleep and happy than awake. So that's the end of the show this evening, and thanks again for Tony Topping for jumping in at last minute to come on the show.
Yeah, thank you, Tony.
And thanks, Nyssa, for joining me.
Thanks, Taj.
Good night, everyone.